Mr. Bardoli is sitting extreme right. Mr. Roshan DeCosta, Director Human Resources, Middle East, Caspian Sea region, Bureau Veritas, is there next. Dr. Rani Desai, founder of It's About You, to my just right. Mr. D'Souza is not available. I'm R.P. Banerjee. This topic is how virtual reality is impacting HR. Only 20 minutes is there, so I make a point that each of the panelists will speak maximum 5 minutes, minimum 4 minutes, in the beginning. And at the end, if there is a time available, then I'll speak on the topic. I am restricting my discussion until everyone completes. We were thinking that we will have 2 rounds of discussion, but we cannot do that. So we'll have only 1 round of discussion. So I'm requesting Mr. Bashav Bardoli to come up with his points. Mr. Bardoli, please.
Yeah, good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen. Virtual reality, and it's supposed to be a discussion. So I will first start with a couple of points which I was kind of thinking. There's no slide, no notes. I was kept on thinking about this subject, virtual reality, how is it impacting us? That is our HR fraternity. 31 years back, when I graduated from a business school, so when we were in the verge of going out to the world, 2 months we were taken through some communication classes, effective communication. And we were told that you are human resource people, right? H is the word you should always remember, human. And human means connection. Human means love. Human means affection. And how do you do this connection? I was given our professor at that point of time, Mr. Pandarangan from IIM Kolkata, he said, well, these are some equations. 79%, he was talking about effective communication. 79% is sight, 11% sound, 5% body language, 5% is your facial expressions. That completes your effective communication. I said, sir, can you explain how? Well, if you hear to a radio ad, you will not relate to it. And the same ad is played on a television, you would be glued to the screen because it has got the entire communication. You have sight, you have sound, you have facial expressions, you have somebody talking about the whole subject. Now, we have been diligently following that. HR means not virtual reality, it's reality, face-to-face, human-to-human connection. And then we were also taught that, remember guys, there is a concept called learn, unlearn, and relearn. So all these, over these last 3 decades, we have always been experiencing reality, no virtual reality, and that's how I grew up, right? So suddenly something comes like virtual reality, some chat GPT, and everything, say, oh God, how do I sustain? Then again, I start learning, unlearning, and relearning about this whole world of virtual reality. There are shades of positives, there are shades of negatives for our fraternity, that is human resources, right? I would not say it is totally a disaster for us, but yes, there are certain points, negatives, which we have experienced, although every HR professional sitting in this room would say yes, and they would vouch for it, that there are certain things which are missing. I heard a lot of speakers talking about emotional stability, a lot of speakers talking about well-being of people, and also have seen a lot of speakers talking about the AI, how artificial intelligence is helping us to do our, towards the welfare of the human resources. Yes, all those are very good, but I would still maintain that reality is reality, and virtual reality is, of course, it's the next thing in the world, which, as a HR professional, we are now coming up with our acceptance, and I hope it does good for the community, for the entire global corporate world. So I would like to hand over the mic to my colleague so that it becomes a discussion. I have just put in my point that this is what it is, what I feel. So I would like to hear from my colleagues, what do they feel about this?
Yeah, Mr. De Costa, please.
Good afternoon, everyone. Basab, I think you kind of summed up the foundation based on what we are going to discuss today, so I'll not go into that. But I think I will share with you certain experiences that we've had. I think the COVID was a good learning. For the organization that I'm working with right now, the organization that has been, it's quite old, traditional kind of setup, the way they work. It's a 200-year-old company. And when the COVID hit, that is where certain realities kicked in as to how is that we are going to work, right? So the first thing we had to change was people weren't coming to work. Safety is a top priority. How do I coach and train people? So how do we do that? Virtual reality. We build modules of training. You had a person there, a personified figure there, giving out these trainings to people so that people do not feel that there is no human touch, as you rightly said, that people wouldn't connect rather than just listening. There was a virtual or a visual connect in what was happening. That's where training changed for us. In terms of business, what we do, in terms of the core of our business, we are into inspection, testing, and certification. And one of the shipbuilding codes, whoever is from oil and gas, you would understand that. The shipbuilding code is written by my company. So previously, what used to happen is we had to send an inspector physically going and doing an inspection on a ship or a vessel or an FPSO or whatever you call it. But since this concept of remote work, virtual, kicked in, we had to go and build a new team of developers who developed the book, the code that was written into a virtual software, which is, of course, it's a software which is owned by the company. And how it is working today is that before even a ship has been built, the software could be used, and someone could tell you whether this ship will float or it will sink. So we definitely cut out on those number of hours that someone would have to go to a remote location or a dock to check out a ship and to tell you, okay, is it seaworthy or not? Have we lost jobs? Absolutely not. We still need those engineers who are the brain behind those codes, who test and inspect the codes that have been written by those developers. They are the QC there who do that, and that's how the teamwork and the delivery of the job happens. The third example I would like to quote to you is, I don't know how many of you would have heard about telematics. Anyone heard about telematics? Right? So many of the countries, especially in the Middle East, I come from the Middle East, I worked there. You know, there is no control for speed. You can drive a car 140 kilometers, it is legal. Distances between work could be 150 kilometers, a site location. You would take probably 1 or 2 hours to drive within Mumbai to reach a 20-kilometer distance, but a 140-kilometer distance could be reached maybe in 1 hour, 1 hour, 15 minutes. It's absolutely fine, But how do you manage safety in these kind of situations? How do you ensure that your person, your employee who's driving is not, endangering himself or herself on the road? And therefore, the company would like to have some control on their behaviors while visually we are not able to see them. So what did we do? Of course, we introduced this telematics. It's a system. It is an AI software, which is a device which is fitted on a car, which can control the speed of the car, number one. Number two, it can recognize the facial features of a person, especially in the evening, are they fatigued? And it will stop beeping. It will beep asking the person to stop for a break and then proceed. And if they, in case the person doesn't stop, it also gives a notification to the hub where a supervisor can pick a call and call this person asking, look, you're fatigued, take a break, leave after 5 or 10 minutes. So I just wanted to share these examples so to say that how virtual reality, quite a few topics to talk about, but I think these are the main ones which I would like to focus upon. Ma'am?
Yeah, I'm requesting Dr. Desai.
Thank you very much, Roshan. What a contrast kind of points of view that have come up from Basab and Roshan, which is on one point talking about the human contact and the human touch, which was so evident and which was so much needed at a point in time, and Roshan coming up with this technological kind of enhancements and the way the life is being led by the technology. And but the virtual reality is what we call, but the reality is resting in our virtual life and environment and ecosystem today. And the challenges that the HR folks, and we all have here, I love HR, I love our people. The challenges which have come up are so different in today's context to that where the HR is perhaps struggling or on the anvil of overcoming the barriers of supporting the organizations and the people, balancing between the two kind of ecosystems that have been created, one which is the reality, the real life, and the other is the virtual life. In this conversation with one of my very close, one of the senior leaders the person was struggling to say, how do I bring up and manage the organization ecosystem, which was post, there was a lockdown, and there was pandemic, and everybody was virtual, and now there is a hybrid work, and so many of these factors coming up. And when we were going deeper into the analysis and the diagnosis of the situation to say, what is the struggle, what is it that can be helpful, and what are those challenges that need to be looked at? And the newer challenges that were coming was, one of the realization was that there was the difference in the generations that existed within an ecosystem in the organization. And I know for sure that there are some organizations who even have 4 generations working, right from somebody who is an interning at 19 and 20 to somebody who is even post retirement age up to 60, 65 in some of the firms. And the 4 generations, that itself was becoming a difficulty in managing the expectations of the generations, where the younger generations were so savvy and so adapted so well to the virtual reality and were so conversant with it, whilst the older ones, and the ones, like even I would call myself as a transitioning generation, were struggling to manage with the technology and yet look forward to those connects and contact, and that was kind of creating a kind of a disruption or a little rough edges within the organization. The second challenges were in case of the managing the emotions and the feelings, and like we heard in the earlier session with Christopher, that feelings is something that is so prominent, and the feelings and emotions were something that was being so difficult to deal with and handle in terms of those who were not used to this new virtual reality were finding it difficult and feeling insecure that, oh, I'm not in touch with my boss, my managers, and I'm not, how will my performance get rated? How will I showcase my work that I'm doing? And there were some leaders who were struggling to have a conversation, and they are still in the hybrid model as well, where the distances are so much as one day the person arrives into the office and some days the person doesn't arrive. So these are the kind of new challenges that the HR is struggling with. So which means, what does it mean? It means that the HR needs to be more agile in terms of managing these newer way of working, newer way of challenges and the emotions that they have to deal with, and the newer ways of even coming out to say, how do I bring about an innovative way of measuring the performances? How do I bring about an innovative and a newer way of communication? How do I bring about those changes in the conversations that one would have? And in this context, one of my clients that I was working with, the challenge was in the communication, the virtual, the Zoom meetings that were happening. So one had to work on those. So what are those conversations? What are those key messages? Or how does one make it very cryptic and brief and yet impactful? How does one get the information that one needs to? How does one hold those meetings? So these are the newer skills that need to be developed in the organization. The newest skill is about how does one build the emotional quotients very high? How does one build that empathy and care? And at the same time, bringing in that element of having the objectiveness in all the practices that one puts forth. So these are the newer challenges where the HR is facing. And it's an interesting kind of a situation, interesting environment at the same time. It is very challenging, where HR themselves now have to bring in the new mode of thinking. They have to rewire themselves from what they have otherwise been wired with in this new reality is some of the perspectives that I would like to put forth here.
Thank you, madam. Yeah, we are close to end of our session, just a few minutes left. I just, so we don't have any scope to, have a next round of discussion. Well, a few points from my side. First of all, I would thank the, thinkers for this World HRD Congress 31st edition to have included this topic, virtual reality and its impact on HR. And we have agreed, all of us, that, it has an impact. And it has actually created an impact, and that's revealed through the talks of everyone. All the distinguished panelists have mentioned that. I have a different view. Like, virtuality that we are talking about is now become a part of the game. We are calling hybrid, so it has to continue. But beyond that, there is something, like, when Mr. Bardoli had mentioned that face-to-face, it's actually the reality, the sense that we understand the reality as. Then again, when Mr. D'Souza had mentioned about his, remote control of the shipping activity, understanding, quality certifying, examining, and coming to a conclusive point, connecting with people on a dynamic frame, this is very important for a different set of organization, maybe for each organization. And when Dr. Desai was integrating these two things together, like, the virtual and real together, the rational and the emotional together, that's again important. I have a, third dimension here to mention, that when we talk about the virtual, we just refer to the technology as depicting the virtual or working for the virtual. We have in our ancient Indian scriptures and ancient Indian system, a spiritual dimension which connects the people in the organization much, better way, and the cementing is so wider, so, important, and so permanent that, other instruments become subordinate to that. When we talk about love and affection, we talk about understanding people, empathy, taking care of people, caring, becoming compassionate, joining hands with each other. All these are taken care of when there is a spiritual dimension and you understand the the divinity of the person, and you connect the person with your discovery of inner divinity. And when the connection is formed there, it's so intrinsic that, there's the balance between, trying to leave and, you persuading to stay, or whether the person is going to stay or leave. This, you don't have to have a concern for that. Because in a person who has considered the work as a work as endowed to him or her, the person would continue in the workplace. Obviously, because, you don't have to put a drive for that. You don't have to drive the person towards that. The person becomes a self-motivator, self-driver for that. And that's also can be considered as a kind of virtual. Why it's virtual? Because, when it's in the level of consciousness, is managing through consciousness, managing through spiritual consciousness. And when we do that, then it's a superior, variety of virtuality. And that virtuality is something which doesn't depend on the instrumental virtuality. For example, when we talk about AI, when we talk about, other forms, for example, neural network, which we use in management, and in the application, so many different models. Now, I guess 1,000 or even more different kinds of models are available. Even here in this hall, when we enter, we have this card, this ticket, which is also RFID, connected. So everywhere you'll find a small organization, large organization, everywhere it's there. It's already adopted in our system, but it has not solved the problem. It will not be able to solve the problem. It will solve the problem partially. If you have to address the problems of HR, which we know as a perennial problems, those problems can be solved when we have a core spirituality in that, and core spirituality has to have the divine dimension within. And if that understanding is there, then probably we solve the problems. And I am taking the problem out of this issue and then mentioning that we solve the problem. However, it may be, apart from problems also. You can set the agenda for the organization apart from any kind of problem. And there, connecting between this artificial, reality and the objective reality through technological modes, it's welcome, it has to be there. And I guess our distinguished panelists all have, supported in favor of that. And with this, I think my time is over. I'm sorry, 4 minutes I've taken more. So I consider that, with your permission, let us close it.
Yes,
huh?
just 1:30
Okay, okay, please.
Well, because I started it, so I'd like to close it. The crux is we need to strike a balance between reality and virtual reality. So please enjoy your red dots, green dots, and yellow dots. Thank you very much.
Thank you.